whatever. Thank you for being here. I'm Karen Weisbard. I am the current chair of the 2-year program, and we're going to have a question and answer period after these lovely people who are on the panel are going to talk with you a little bit about their experience being in the program. And then these lovely people are currently in the program, and this person, Michael Allison, has graduated from the 2-year program eons ago and is a current instructor in the program. And so we'll also be talking about both, a little bit of both kind of what happens after, as well as what does this do for you while you are in it. So we're just going to start because we're starting late already. So I think Julia has agreed to go first, and they're going to speak for a little bit, 5 minutes each, 5 to 10 minutes each, and then, like I said, we'll stop, ask questions, and then there's lunch, and then hopefully there's time just to informally, the people that are here at least meet with us, and then I can figure out maybe how to informally do the Zoom, interact with the Zoom people. So thank you for coming online as well. And now I'm supposed to mute this.
I'll assist.
Thank you very much. This is our wonderful administrative, like we couldn't live without him, San.
I try.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Julia Bonheim. I am, so currently in the 2-year program. I'm a therapist in private practice. And let's see, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my practice and sort of how I came to the program, and then experience here, and then you guys can prompt me if there's sort of categories of things that I'm forgetting to talk about. So this is a second career for me. I spent the first 10 years of my career in the tech world, and then went back to school to become a therapist. So I'm still relatively new in the field. I've only been practicing for about 5 years. And when I went back to school, I decided to go, I knew that I wanted to be a practicing therapist, and decided to go the route of getting a master's. And as I, even at that point, as I was thinking about this career path, I knew that it's just such a rich field and a rich body of work, and felt like such a large responsibility to take on, to sort of have the privilege of being allowed into people's lives in the way that we are. And I knew that, no matter what program I went to for grad school, that 2 years was going to be a drop in the bucket of the kind of training that I was going to competent in this work, and to feel like I was, I don't know, honoring the responsibility that I had to what people were bringing to me. And so I sort of had this program in mind from the get-go, the idea that I was going to go to grad school and then do more. And this was one of the things that I was thinking about. And so I did grad school at Seattle U's existential phenomenological degree in psychology, and then practiced for a year or two, and then started here. I have a private practice in Seattle. I work part-time. I have 2 kids, a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. And so balancing all of those things, and also class, has been really important to me. And it's been manageable, busy, but manageable. And it's felt like a nice way to balance things out. And I think that part of what the program has done for me is created a structure to do the kind of learning that I knew that I wanted to do, but would never have done on my own. You know, that looking through the syllabus, it was like, okay, you know, I have these books, or I've read this article here, or I've read about this person, or I've read a couple of these things, or I've dabbled over here. Yeah, no, I definitely want to read this. But I was never going to pick it up on my own time. And so having the structure of the program, of the instructors, of the cohort, has made it possible for me to actually do the things that in my, my most idealistic self, I would be doing. And I think my work has deepened as a result. And I think it's been interesting to find, and I think you'll hear more about it. It's really been for me, a foundation into psychoanalytic psychotherapy. And we get, I would say, an introduction isn't quite the right word, because none of us are quite beginners, but also none of us are experts. And so it's I would say more of a foundational groundwork, where we're taking the pieces that each of us know, and our cohort's very multidisciplinary. We've got a number of therapists, we have a lot of psychiatrists, we have people at different points in our careers. And so everybody's coming into it bringing a different starting point, different experiences, different backgrounds. And so we're sort of weaving our own experiences together within the material from the instructors, the material syllabi, and putting together this foundation to my work, and has also helped helped me feel like I have a lot more solid ground. That I think it has been useful to have more to grab onto, more to pull on, more to draw from. And it's different with different people, and it's different with the same people in different sessions. But to always have something, whether it's in a paper or a discussion or a conversation, sort of top of mind on a very regular basis, has been incredibly enriching and feels relevant in a very constant way. That's left me. And I was talking with Karen and Ben just the other day about, like, okay, so like, what's next? Like, I sort of don't want it to end, because I don't want to lose some of the constancy of stimulation of material. If that makes sense. So I'm sort of talking off the cuff, but what are some of the, if I missed any of the categories?
You're good, thank you.
Right.
Let's have Ben and Sarah speak, and then I'm sure that everybody will have questions that will help us then know, like, what more do you guys want to know from us?
My name's Ben Schaefer. I'm another LMHC. I did my graduate work at the Seattle School of Theology and Psychology. Finished in 2015. And I moved to Yakima to work in community mental health for cost of living purposes. And I loved it. So community mental health world of like EDPs and CBT and DBT, and oh my God. And I felt really alone in Yakima as having more of a psychodynamic background. So I think that's what drew me to the program, was a set, like, I need some community. I need some people who can talk about the unconscious and not just EDPs. My private practice is like 50% Medicaid. So I work with tough kids, youth, mostly foster and adopt. So that's another place where I needed to feel like I had something to tie into in this community. Like, when I opened my practice, I didn't realize that nobody in private practice works with Medicaid, except me. So I really was like dying for a place to feel like there was intellectual support, and some relational components too. I think Julia said a lot of stuff that I could say again about like wanting to have accountability for reading and things like that. Like these are all things that I've wanted to read forever, and I'm not a great I'm not super motivated to read on my own, but it's been really fun to read in community. It's changed my practice, I think, a little bit in that I think the therapy police are a lot less with me in my day-to-day, and I have more of like a larger mind for other like supportive thinkers versus this idea that like it's helped me get rid of some imposter syndrome and be like, yeah, we're all gonna make mistakes and I'm gonna make some good ones today. And that's been good. It's been super supportive. I probably never would have presented at a conference or even sat here on a panel. It's like not my thing. But through encouragement and just like the learning community that we've had, I was able to write and present at conferences here, and like I'm sitting here today. There's been a lot of growth for me personally as well as professionally.
Much more succinct.
You can control my notes.
I was gonna say.
So I'm Sarah. I am a psychiatrist. I did my residency at UW, and then after residency, I moved to Tacoma and I opened a private practice. And I decided to do the 2-year program because a few different things. My supervisor that I was working with during residency, who supervised me on my psychodynamic patients, had done the 2-year program and had a lot of wonderful things to say about it. And also I love her and I want to be just like her. So that was a huge draw. In residency, we had 2 8-week sort of seminars that was like psychoanalytic history on steroids. And it was very short and a lot of information. And I feel like it just wasn't enough for me. I wanted more. I, really wanted to feel like I had a good foundation. And I feel like that's what the program has given me. I'm really interested by all of the readings, but with a full-time practice, it's really hard to motivate yourself to do extra reading unless, so yeah, the accountability is really nice. It is mostly like a discussion-based course, which I knew coming into it. And I think that is both a strength, but also like for me, it's difficult just because of my own propensity to sort of question whether what I have to say is useful or insightful. Everyone in our cohort just has so much to contribute, and I really like that our class is multidisciplinary, because it is really interesting to see how the psychiatrists think about something differently than the social workers or the LMHCs. So I think that's really cool. And let's see what else. As far as how it has changed my practice, I would say it has helped me sort of tune into what is going on with me when I'm with a patient, and have a little more confidence in that. Whereas I think before I was very focused on like, okay, what do I say? How do I respond to this? So it has helped me sort of listen to my own reactions and use that information about what's going on with the patient. So I think so has made me think about things that I wouldn't have thought about, like, we had a whole course on sexualities, and I did not realize how uncomfortable I am talking about sex with patients until we had that class. And I feel I'm still not comfortable, but I feel more comfortable with it now. So I like that it sort of forced me to think about some of these areas that I wouldn't have done on my own.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys, I'm sure will get a chance to interact.
You
Oh, it's okay. I don't need to. They don't need to.
You.
Michael.
Well, start with that.
Dan, you want to just pass this one down?
We're passing the torch. There we go.
So I'm Michael Allison. I actually graduated from this program back in 2008 and came right into it out of grad school and went to Seattle U, not the phenomenological program, but the other one, which had a great strength in clinical experience, but not a lot of theoretical dimensions to it. And so I was really hungry, even though I'd grown up kind of with some psychoanalytic stuff around me. I didn't really have a deep understanding and hadn't had a chance to really dig in. And the program really gave me a grounding. I think probably the best thing out of the whole program, aside from the theoretical grounding, was the cohort, actually, the connection and having people who think about this stuff very differently all come together and really engage with each other in the community, not just through SPSI, but kind of then broadening out into other areas of the Seattle psychoanalytic community. And then, as Ben mentioned, other conferences and kind of having an opportunity to dig into all of that stuff. I started out practicing a lot with adolescents and have expanded my practice over time. So I see people throughout the lifespan. I've been in private practice since 2005 in the youth district kind of area. The strengths and weaknesses, that's a good thing to talk about. So I think the strengths have been spoken to a lot here. I'm just adding that kind of sense of collegial cohort. Some of the people that I graduated with in that program are still in a consult group with me. And that's, just been this really deep clinical enriching experience over time. The weakness, I think, is how short it is. I mean, it's kind of like there just isn't enough time. And so putting together, now I'm kind of speaking from both sides as an instructor too, putting together a syllabus in 8 weeks to cover interpersonal relational psychoanalysis or adult development or whatever it is. Time goes by very quickly and you want to leave time for discussion. And so I think there's no real solution to that except to encourage people to continue reading and have recommended reading, have ways to kind of continue that thinking and learning outside of the classes themselves. But I think that's probably the major weakness that I see in the program, both as a student and an instructor. The primary way I think that like this is a sense of, I think of theory as really a way of trying to make sense out of what's happening clinically, and a kind of security blanket for the therapist. It's a way of turning to something that helps you ground yourself and understand very difficult, intimate experiences that are happening with patients. And that continues to be the case. Rereading all these articles again as an instructor.
Right. Okay, so now I think this is a good place to pause and open it up for all of you online as well as in person to ask questions of everybody up here, including me. And then there are other faculty members here that are in the back of the room that will be available too to answer some questions, and please chime in if you guys sort of feel like there's something you want to add. People who are here, questions that you have for us, details like anything, like how do you keep up with the reading, or what actually are the classes like, or what's been your favorite thing, or just anything that you guys particularly are interested in. And can you say your name?
My name's Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
Yeah, at night, I am a reading nerd. I'm always reading and the snacks by my bed, but I'm just curious if they get a sense of how outside the actual reading the work, that's the thing that could vary a lot, but.
We were just talking about this earlier, which is why you're getting chuckles up here. There's a couple terms in the way that our cohorts experiences work. There's a couple terms where there's 2 didactic classes.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the time we'll have 1 didactic class and then a case conference. So when there's a case conference, there's less to read. But when there's 2 didactic modules at the same time, that's when you notice that there's, oh God, there's reading. It's always been really manageable though. I mean, I'm super sleep busy and I commute from Yakima for the program.
Yeah.
And I've managed to do it. So, it's like an evening and a half. It's an evening and an afternoon worth of reading or something like that.
And we try as the instructors to assign no more than 1 article per week. So if you are in didactics 2 times and the classes meet from 6:30 to 9:30, so you would have 2 classes in a row every Monday night. And yeah, the curriculum is in the brochure that you have. So hopefully you're not reading more than 2 articles a week. We're
Except
really.
for class.
We
did
Or during-
two.
You did
Sometimes
too.
3.
So we're
Yeah,
trying to,
Yeah.
as the instructor are, grappling with like, we have so much to teach. There's so much we want you to learn. And then like, as Michael was saying, just in an 8-week term to try to give you as a survey, so to speak, like a Freud in 8 weeks. Like, it's just not, if you only read 1 thing each week, you're only reading 8 things, of a canon of work. So it's hard to choose what is like the most relevant, perhaps for the purposes of the class and of the certificate program. So we're trying as instructors to get a little bit more uniform about that. And then there are certain classes where we are trying to even do less reading so that we can spend like 1 week reading the article and trying to actually understand the material. And I think, as Sarah was saying, sometimes it is important for the instructors to teach and not just have a discussion. And so with less articles, then we get to have the second class where we're more discussing the article in terms of people's reactions to it and what else it's bringing up. But the first class is like, we're going to teach the article. But then of course you read less. So again, a bit of a balancing act.
I'm happy. I have 2 questions. One is there any additional outside work into the budget? And this is
So if, for people online, if you didn't hear that, is there additional outside requirements or work? And then also, what are the case conferences like? Yes.
So I think, nothing that I can think of as far as outside work, although one thing that just our cohort has just recently been starting to like get together a little bit before class just to hang out at Starbucks. I mean, very recently, like maybe the 3rd or 4th week we've been doing it. I think because we were feeling an actual lack of connectivity in having nothing other than just the time together in class. And it made some of the more like potentially tender and vulnerable conversations within class feel really stilted and challenging to not have any other contact. So while it's been great to not have any outside work, this is not like there's any like take home things, there's no projects, but one thing that had sort of occurred to me, it was like, oh, without that, there's no collaboration, there's no other touch points. And so we had started just saying, oh, let's like try to meet a little bit socially before class, just to create some more sense of community around it, because we really were feeling like we needed that. But no, there's nothing else that's required outside of it. Our case conferences have been really diverse. We've had everything from very very little structure. We've had things where we've had two people, one person present for kind of half the term and another for the other half. We've had ones where it's been, I mean, our case conference about dreams last term was just anybody who had a patient bring up a dream in session would bring it up that, would bring it up that class, and we would do that. We've had others that people have been very, involved preparation, ones where you just read the transcript. So there's been a lot of variety based on sort of the theme of the case conference, and also kind of what the instructors have wanted to do, where the class has been. And I don't know if that's going to be the same, next year, or if that's going to be different.
Yeah. So the program used to be that you'd come back on every other week on another night, on a Thursday night, to do case conference. And when I became chair of the program, one of the changes we made to the curriculum was to see if we could decrease the hardship of that, of coming back, because like Tacoma, Yakima, we were hoping to sort of draw a little bit more diverse cohort from different regions as well. And so asking that additional ask felt like perhaps prohibitive. And so that was one reason. And so theming the case conferences and putting them as part of the Monday night curriculum also meant that some classes got taken out. And so that's why we sort of did theming of the case conference, like adding dreaming in, and like the one they're taking now is embodiment is the theme. It's and again, the analysts and instructors that are running case conference all come from their own theoretical perspective, their own discipline, their own training. And so I think one of the things that we will try to do with this cohort would be throughout the whole program, I think, do a little bit more uniformity, if we can, amongst the diverse instructors that we have and the disciplines that they come from, so that the students have a little bit more of a coherent, maybe, experience. Again, you might take away something, but you might add something in doing that. And then I would say that what is written up in here, it's not a requirement, it's a recommendation. It's very different than psychoanalytic training, where you are required to be in supervision on all your cases, and you're also required to be in your own analysis. We highly recommend that you are in your own supervision with either a psychodynamic psychotherapist or an analyst. And also, I can't speak enough for the importance of being in your own psychoanalysis, whether you're going to become a psychoanalyst or not. It's just, life changing. So one of the things that this program has done this cohort, and will do more of in the next cohort, is you will be assigned a mentor right from the start. And we will make sure that the mentors are checking in with you at least once a term, but even before you begin the program, to come up with a list of, like, are you interested in psychodynamic or psychoanalytic supervision or psychoanalysis? And we can start to provide you with more resources perhaps than has been provided. And also now, especially as these guys are ending, we want to make sure the mentors check in with them to be like, and so what's next? So that, how do we help you continue on your developmental path, and how does SPSI become a community that you feel like there are more opportunities for you in? And I think that in general, SPSI is trying to figure out how to create more opportunities for people within the institute that are, ongoing post your training. Happy, does that answer? Okay, thank you. Other people who are in the room? Yeah.
My name's Jay. Curious how big is the cohort, and then also what kind of attendance do you see typically?
What was the second part of your question, Jay?
How often are people attending?
Oh, great. Yeah.
Second answers. So I think our cohort is 12. Sorry, or we started out with 12 and now we're 10. And it is a hybrid format, so you can either be there in person or online. And I would say the majority of our class attends in person. It definitely is better to attend in person just for like the discussion and just building that like camaraderie. But I do appreciate having the hybrid format because if you're, traveling one week or if you're sick, but not like horribly sick, you don't have to miss, you can still attend. But yeah, most people do attend in person. I drive up from Tacoma every week. So yeah.
I think there's a policy that we all just realized the other day. I just learned about, and I think there might be a policy that there's 2 absences allowed. But that's been navigable for anybody who had issues with that.
And also written in this brochure, because of the feedback, it's not a requirement, but the expectation for both the instructors and the students is that you do attend in person for exactly these reasons. And that the option to be online is for emergency, so to speak. Sick kids, sick yourself, traveling, but you don't want to miss. But we really would, and this, again, who knows with COVID, but that was sort of for the last 2 years. We're obviously hope that the next 2 years, that people are more comfortable coming back in person. And I know not everybody can do that. So if you're in a situation where you're like, I really want to attend, but I would only be able to attend online, we would have to really talk about that. Because I think, as the cohort is saying, it just really makes a difference for people being all in the room together.
Can I just add that in terms of attendance, certainly things come up, but with an 8-week term, if you miss one class, you're actually missing a big chunk of theoretical paradigm. And so it's really hard to kind of come back and figure out how do I get something out of that, even if you've read the articles on your own.
I think most of the time, most people are there, and it's not shocking. I mean, I think it's pretty common that in a term, people might miss what, like stuff comes up and people might miss one, but like I had, just because of the way dates fell and school breaks and travel and stuff, to miss 2 classes. The class Michael was teaching the last term, and it like was very disorienting for me and totally missed things. And yeah, it makes a big difference.
It's a little hard on Monday nights because a lot of holidays fall on Monday.
Yeah.
And so again, hoping to honor all the diversity that is in the community, that we weren't like canceling classes just for a holiday. But like the first year, Halloween fell on a Monday, and a lot of the parents were like, we want to go trick-or-treating with our kid. So then the class decided to reschedule that, but that had to be in, coordination in the class and the instructors. And so it is a little challenging on Monday nights to sort of be like, well, we're going to just keep going, even though we know it's MLK or it's Rosh Hashanah or it's, President's Day holiday. Like we're mindful of that, and we're also trying to sort of also figure out how to not like favor one holiday over another, and just, but it does make Mondays a little bit challenging for family and for people who are like, that's when I'm going on vacation, it's the 3-day weekend.
Karen, there's a question in the chat about somebody who's at a UW remote learning program and would have to be all remote. There were a couple questions about that. I think Karen sort of addressed that in saying that it would be a thing to have conversations about. Does that address those?
Yeah, it looks like a couple of people who live outside the commuting area.
In other words, it'd be part of the application process, and it'd be.
I don't know if you need to.
Yes.
Yeah, can you guys hear Karen and Michael when they're
So
talking?
it's a little different because the psychoanalytic training program has a distance learning option. So that is not an option at the moment in the 2-year program where we have a distance learning option. And so like Michael is saying, and I'm saying, for those of you who feel like that's the only way that you can attend, we should probably talk, because if we have a lot of applicants into the program and we don't want to admit more than 12, because 12 has really been challenging. I think that the cohort would agree, it's a lot. But then there was attrition, so then you're now down to 10, and if we admit 10, and then there's attrition and we're down to 8. So we're always trying to sort of balance that. But most likely, given that we want people to attend in person, it might not favor your application as much if you were like, I can only attend remotely. I just don't know that we're set up for that right now.
Hi, I'm Ingrid. I'm sorry I was late too. I went to the old building.
We're sorry, Ingrid.
Okay. I guess I was just wondering about the application process, so I don't know if we covered that. I apologize.
We have not yet covered that.
Okay. Just, yeah, anything that we need to know or anything that isn't covered in the actual application.
Do you guys remember your application?
There was a personal statement.
Interview.
So then there'll be an application deadline, which will be May 15th, which is 2 weeks after the psychoanalytic training program deadline, which is May 1st. So if anybody that is also here is also thinking about that program still, please know, that that's their deadline. And then once all the applications are in May 15th, then a bunch of us are going to sit down together, instructors and faculty and different people that are part of SPSI, look at the applications, and then we will be inviting people for an interview, and you'll interview with 2 of the SPSI faculty instructors of the program. And unlike these people, that the interviews will be much more uniform than they were before. I sort of took over the program late, and so we were like scrambling, but that won't be the case this time. So after you get your applications in, then let's say you'll be contacted in June, you'll interview, and it's similar to the application. We want to get to know you. We want to get to know your practice. We want to sort of know a little bit about what you come to into this program with, both your interest, where your practice has been, and also your ability to commit to the program for 2 years, and do the readings and come to class, and sort of some of that will be part of the evaluation of just, are you ready? Is this a good time for you to do this? Does that, Ingrid, mostly answer? Do you have other things?
Yeah, I think so. Just kind of wanted open-ended because I definitely want to apply. So I'm just curious about that.
Was it nerve-wracking? Did you guys feel like the interview process, was it okay?
It was like a conversation with an analyst, so.
There's always that.
Yeah.
We're not looking, to diagnose you or. But also how the cohort will fit together. And as this group has been saying, very multidisciplinary, and trying to, as we can, create as much diversity, but also, hopefully honor people coming from different traditions of learning.
What the applicant to acceptance rate is, like, how many decided on actually.
Do you remember?
I think that there were, Jeanette, do you remember, there were like, how many people applied last time? Do you remember? Because we ended up, taking 12, and I know that there were a few people that didn't, but it wasn't that many. It was like 15 or something like that.
And mainly we felt, I think that most people we felt that they weren't quite ready yet, and we sort of recommended they continue to maybe take courses through the Alliance or get into some supervision if they hadn't been in psychodynamic supervision already, just to sort of get more familiar with what they were sort of interested in taking on. so that it wasn't just a theoretical, but like they had really had some experience already.
I mean, the challenge is, again, a 12-person cohort is actually quite large. And actually at 10, I think it feels better in some ways, just in terms of the amount of people. I think when we started, we had 11 and we ended up with 9 in our cohort.
It's very hard if people feel really interested and qualified to say no, right? Like to say no
Yeah.
feels really hard.
I'm curious about the range of, what's in the cohort. A lot of different experiences, background.
I think, some of it is just education. Again, we have MDs, we have social workers, LMHCs. So part of that is just educational. And then before that, we have people who again, first career, second career. We have a range of ages. We have people who are I think, let's see, somebody who was in her third year of residency to somebody who I think been out of residency practicing for years and years. So kind of a span of both age, but also professional experience and time in the field. I think we have some degree, though maybe not as much as we would like, kind of racial and ethnic and religious diversity.
I think you might have people working you up to stereotypes, like
It adds,
So some.
yeah, I think it adds so much richness to think about the diversity of clients that we have in a room of 12 people. And I mean, that's been incredibly rewarding to think about, like you said, all ages. You have it like from 9. My practice is crazy anyway. I'm like 9 to 61 right now. But that's probably representative of what goes on in the room. There's just a lot of different experience.
I will say from my perspective, SPSI has a lot of strengths. For me, one of the weaknesses is the diversity. So I am like one of 2 people of color in our class. So it is like majority white. And we are, this year, Karen really made an effort to start incorporating more of that into our curriculum. So it's great. We're reading a lot of papers about race dynamics. But as one of 2 people of color in the class, it is really hard to have those kind of conversations. So, I mean, to be frank, that is why I am here today. I would like to recruit more people of color to the program. I think it would bring a lot. But yeah.
choosing like two in the 4-year program.
I mean, it's a hugely different, I mean, like, we're asking for a really large commitment to this program, but like triple that or something.
Quadruple that.
Quadruple it, for the 4-year program. I think it partly for me, it was like, I wasn't ready to even consider full analytic training at the time. And I don't know what you all would say, but largely that had to do with time commitment and finances and, a lot of practical issues. I think if you're like on board you want to become a psychoanalyst, it'd be great to just launch right into the 4-year program.
And if you feel like you want to just keep doing programs forever, then do the 2-year program and keep flexing into your practice and growing into your community and figuring out what you want to be more directed about your learning in the 4-year program and grow your learning in that direction. So there's lots of reasons. There's also why not the 4-year program. Don't listen, but why not the 4-year program at SPSI? Because it's every Friday. You gotta give up every Friday for 2 years, or a distance program.
4 years. Yeah.
4 years.
The didactics happen, so it's in the psychoanalytic training program, which you have 4 years of didactics. And that's why we're just using the euphemism 4-year, but it's really, most people do not finish their analytic training in 4 years. You finish your didactics and then you're considered post-didactic. But the other requirements of having to have 3 control cases, each one having a different supervisor and your own personal analysis, that's 3 to 5 times a week. Financially, a big, huge commitment, time-wise, a big, huge commitment, but also, you know, I'm a psychoanalyst, so I felt I didn't do a 2-year certificate program, but was the career I wanted. And so it's, you know, obviously, professionally, personally, incredibly rich and meaningful. And it is a life changer, but it's also life changing while you're doing it. It's really huge. And it's incredible.
And there's quite a few people, like in our cohort, there were at least 2, maybe more people that did the 2-year certificate program and then went on into the 4-year program afterwards. And it's a really good setup for them.
Do you want to come up front for a minute, John, just because of the people on the screen, and you could sit here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Cardinale. I'm currently a faculty member. I'm an analyst, but I started in the 2-year program in 2002 and then rolled into the 4-year program. And what I would say about the linking the two, if you don't know that you want to be an analyst, the 2-year program is a fantastic foundation. I've read some of these articles 10 times. I've taught them. I learn every time I do this. So it's really, this program, in my experience, really set the foundation for me as an analyst. And the other thing I'll just add is it's the beginning of a relationship with a community. So this is a nice way if you're trying to establish a sense of professional community post your own individual academic training programs to build community. And for those of us working in private practice or in other settings, the isolation of the work is something to learn to manage over the course of the career. And this is just a very nice community part of. So I'm a huge fan of this program. I don't get to teach it right now, but I look forward to doing it as we can. So.
Did that answer your question? There was, you need to go. Thank you so much. Of course. I'm going to just echo what Sarah said. I'm so glad that she was on this panel as one of the two people in the program that are not white. And this is something that psychoanalysis, I believe, is really wrestling with. And we do have other people that are not white that are training to be psychoanalysts. I am hoping to recruit more of them to be instructors in the program, because that's the other challenge, is if we haven't been training, if we've been only training white people, then the white people are the ones that are teaching you. And we are really heartfelt committed to doing that differently. And we're challenged. We're literally challenged. And so we will get there, but it's going to take time. So the more that come that are non-white, the better for psychoanalysis. It's going to change the field, which it needs, in my mind, to change. Let me just, somebody asked in the chat, when were the different deadlines for the program? So May 1st is the deadline for the psychoanalytic training program. That is a very different application, much more in depth, and a lot more writing that you have to do for that application. And then the interview process is also much more, I think you have 3 or 4 different interviews for the psychoanalytic training program. And our deadline is May 15th. Yes, Mary. Online.
Okay, thank you. So just to be clear, May 15th for the 2-year program, May 1st for the 4-year program.
Correct.
Thank you.
I have a question. I'm wondering if you You mentioned that a previous cohort started at 11 and 9, and your cohort started from 9 down to 10. Any idea of why there's an attrition? I imagine it's a unique to each person, but if you have any thoughts about that, why people continue?
There's been lots of, I mean, over many cohorts, there's lots of different reasons. I mean, somebody moves, somebody has a baby, there's, you know, somebody has some change in their life that changes their ability to commit to the time, and or they've bit off more than they can chew. I mean, there's lots of, I think it is individual.
I think it's mostly change of life circumstance.
Things unexpected.
Yes,
It's not because we're not wonderful.
yeah, definitely not.
Well, I guess when people thought they were getting it, and then they had a different experience.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I know in our cohort, it seems like it was mostly 2 cases of change in life circumstances. Right. Yeah. I don't know what it's been for, you know, for others.
Yeah.
Jen?
Look at what it says online, but the tuition.
Not that I'm aware of. No, the tuition is not going up. The president of our board just gave me the nod.
We actually had a tuition stable for, I think, 15 years, something like that. And we just recently did a 10% increase to tuition dues. And I don't anticipate we're going to do that again.
I do have to say it is the best deal in town. I mean, in terms of the amount of hours you get didactically and the effort that the instructors are putting in to make these syllabi is hands down, you are getting your money's worth on that level alone.
There's a question online.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yes. Who's asking?
Hi, my name is
Hi.
Matthias.
Hi.
I was wondering if y'all could speak a little bit more to the theoretical orientation of the program. I'm looking at a couple institutes, some that seem to be really object relations focused. This seems to be maybe more broad than that. I would love to hear a little bit more about some of that approach.
Great question. Do either of you want to answer that first? Or give a shot at it?
Give a shot at what my impressions have been of it. Curious to hear, you know, what Karen says. I mean, my sense of it is that it's been trying to give us a sort of overview. I think there's been a more relational tilt. I think SPSI historically has been more ego psychology focused, but there's been a more recent relational tilt, certainly with a lot of the instructors and their backgrounds, but that the program has tried to give us, tried to introduce us to a lot of the different sort of subfields within the field. And so we've had, you know, overviews of object relations, of self-psychology, of Kleinian psychology. I'm trying to sort of go back and think about all the interpersonal relational, you know, so lots of different courses that try to present a lot of the different theories.
Yeah, when we keep talking about like didactic modules, that's generally what those have been. It's like the ego psychology or object relations. And then we read articles that have sort of that framework so that we're learning and dealing with theory in a way that involves application and current articles too. Does that help?
How do we do?
I just add that Karen has done a great job of recruiting instructors so when you have somebody teaching Freud, you have somebody that knows a lot of that material. If you have somebody that's teaching interpersonal relational, they have a very firm grounding in that. So it's eclectic, but it's also, I don't think it leans in, it's not like it's a relational program or a ego psychological program. You really do get instructors coming from diverse backgrounds theoretically as well.
I would say also that contemporary psychoanalysis or progressive psychoanalysis, partly because of the introducing more topics like how do we deal with sociocultural traumas, and how do we deal with issues of race and gender, and some of those topics, and us sort of having a very intentional at SPSI, I believe, to sort of really be grappling with the issues that have been difficult sometimes for psychoanalysis, and really trying to be honoring of those challenges to psychoanalysis. And so, you know, the whole field feels like it's grappling with some of that stuff. And while it may seem like a relational tilt, I think that there may be a sense of perhaps a progressive tilt that is happening in the field in general. So maybe that sort of answers that a little bit. Matthias, we're definitely, you know, like you could go to NPSI, which is very identified, you know, with a much more object relations theoretical framework. And that has never really been SPSI. And SPSI, like, maybe has been identified more with an ego psychology perspective, but that's really changed. You know, that's been changing for a long time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd say the other thing I just add theoretically is that the big school within psychoanalysis that you're not going to get any of in our program is Jung, unless we change that.
Or much Lacan.
All right.
Probably won't get a lot of Lacan. Although, Ben.
You get what you get in the part a little bit, right? So if you're reading it, it will show up.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere that we can find a kind of reading list or authors that you will be covering?
Is for the general public, are the syllabi available or no?
They can be directly linked. They won't have necessarily the content. They'll have all the citations and the content of the syllabus, but not attached PDFs or links.
So you can.
So, but they can provide a direct link to it.
Oh.
There's no way to browse.
So there's a way to go. Can you just say you could go onto the SPSI website, and then from there you can scroll.
I can put together a collection of the links of the syllabi for the past 2 years. I got to sit out.
Would that be helpful for people? Yes. Great. So I'm gonna say, let's adjourn, please eat, and then talk informally with any of us and the other people in the back that are here, that are all teach within. And then for the people that are online, I can stay for a little bit with you guys. If you have some things that you want to talk to me about or ask questions of the other people that are in the room, we can bring them up to the computer. How does that sound?
And the food is from Grand Central Bakery, local store in your neighborhood. And so I wanted to go and introduce myself and let them know we're going to be coming by a lot. So there's vegan sandwiches, vegetarian sandwiches, all kinds of great stuff. So there's a tofu cubano, which I'm very curious about.
Can you actually, Zan, before we adjourn, say something about this new space and the classroom situation and the parking situation for Monday nights?
So this is actually our very first event in this space, which is why, if you notice any rough edges, that is exactly why. I came in last night and did set up and did some testing and discovered some rough edges that I actually did sand down before we met. You didn't see those. But one thing I've been doing is taking notes, because we're doing lots of presentations here, lots of special events and gatherings and parties and things. And we're always going to have a hybrid, remote, in-person connection with people. And so I've been taking notes about all the tech we're going to have to do. So,
and is this one of the rooms that we will be able to be in?
This is the primary presentation room
presentation.
And there's a projector, there's a screen, there's speakers, so there's lots of stuff to explore. There's actually Wi-Fi here, which I don't have the connection to today, which is why we're all on our phones. But the possibilities are great. I'm looking into turning off the AC perhaps during a presentation because it was a lot of white noise blocking us out. But I love the fact that we're going to have this. We're going to be right downstairs. I actually went in and looked at it last night. It's all just studs. There's no walls yet. They're building out our space right now at the first floor. But this is going to be available to us to do events at the weekends and the evenings. We can have our gatherings here. We can come up and have lunch and be social together. It's going to be a lovely, lovely change because we didn't really have that in our last space.
And how will parking be?
Parking is actually going to be pretty good. So Fridays are going to be the day for Monday nights for the 2-year, and then for the psychoanalytic training program on Fridays. People apparently are not working here as much on Fridays, so there'll be more street parking available.
Is it metered or can it's everybody just
It's not metered. The parking around in the area is not metered. There's parking along the waterfront. There's parking on the side streets. I haven't had trouble. We were kind of worried. We were scouting this place and visiting in the summer, and the park is nearby and the waterfront's nearby. We're parking here. But apparently once the sun goes away, people are like, I don't want to come here. So the parking is much easier now. And since our program goes from the fall to the spring, I don't anticipate it's going to be an issue. So
One last question. Is this where the library is going to be as well, or is that?
No. So the library is going to be down, integrated into the classrooms in the space. Right now we have 3 classrooms. We're going to have 4. And the library is going to be divided up into all of the classrooms and in the foyer space.
I just thought the library is another feature of being part of SPSI, right? That's wonderful. You can check books out.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing. Let me just also say, when you do become a student, then with your tuition, you get access for those 2 years to the PEP web, which is incredible. And then I think because we're going to have this new space, I think there'll be opportunities for people to also figure out how to maybe also make use of this space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, I work at a long day on Monday to think great still I'm ready.
And maybe there's then that opportunity. These guys have to go to Starbucks, but maybe there can be people who can get here before class can gather right in this space. That would be nice. Okay, so please mill around, and thank you so much for coming. And of course, you can email me with any specific questions that you have. And again, if you know people that wanted to come and went to the wrong place or got lost, our apologies, and please have those people contact me. Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody have any things you want to ask me or have somebody else come up and ask of somebody else?
Hi, Karen. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Lori.
Hi. I have one question. Regarding the 2 years, are there breaks in between periods? Can you say more about what that looks like for the seasonality?
Absolutely. Typically, there's a 1-week break between terms, but I think over the Christmas holiday, there were maybe 2 weeks. But every term is 8 weeks, and then there's 1 week off, and then the next 8 weeks start.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just chose add.
Sazi, is that how you say your name?
Yeah.
Oh, Lori, we'll come back to you in a second.
Okay. I'm wondering how the 2-year program integrates adult and child psychoanalysis versus the 4-year tracks. I also was very interested in the 4-year track and wasn't able to find like an info session on the 4-year track. So let me know if you're hey, email me. We do those one-on-one as well.
Yeah, I'll put you in contact with Michael Pauly, who's the chair of admissions for the psychoanalytic training program. They had their open house already, so you missed it. But Michael is the chair of admissions and can talk to you individually and walk you through that whole process.
That's great, because I've been looking at the calendar for a little while, and I looked at this like months and months ago. So I'm Thank you. I'd love to chat with them.
Okay, so when you can email me, I'll just let everybody know, Karen at KarenWeisbard, all one word, .com. And then I can put you in touch with Michael Pauly, who's chair of admissions for the psychoanalytic training program. Was there another question?
Child and adult.
Oh, yes, thank you. So within the curriculum, we have two development classes in the 2-year program. And the first development class is like birth to, well, I would say latency age, old term, but still early childhood. And then the second class is sort of mid childhood, let's say, through aging. So that's the only coursework that's going to look at developmental things. But I think that mainly within like the case conferences, people are really more learning, how do you think psychoanalytically? Like, how do you identify where there's like a transference thing going on, or some unconscious process that could be made more manifest? So whether you're working with children, adolescents, or adults, I think the focus is really honing one's analytic listening skills. There's really no specific stuff just to childhood. And I would say most of the theory classes are speaking, somewhat in developmental terms, but, like certainly object relations, theory, right? To speak at all to the child, to have a child psychoanalytic 2-year program, and that's no longer. There is, to jump in a little bit on that question of child adult, Kimberly's going to be the head of curriculum in the psychoanalytic training program, and also will be graduating from the child psychoanalytic training program.
Well, one of these days, perhaps, but the child analytic program at SPSI is also at this point. I'm finishing didactics this year. We don't have anyone else starting child training right now, but we are thinking a lot within curriculum and the group of us who are either child analysts or child candidates about how to get a program going that is more specifically child focused. Is that something that you're particularly interested in, Sazi?
I usually work with young adults into mid adults. I used to work with kids, but I lean more in the adult category, but that like I'm becoming an adult, who am I, what in the wide world of sports is happening kind of situation.
Yeah, sort of the emerging adults. But I do think that, and in we've done some redesign of the adult psychoanalytic program curriculum starting next year, where there will be a short course on doing child analysis. And there's also a lot more developmental, there are more courses in developmental, in child development, adult development in the 4-year program or the adult program, because it's longer. There's more room for that. Yeah. Yes, Marianne.
Hi. So I've been hearing analytic and psychodynamic sort of being used for almost what seems like interchangeably, but I understand them to be very different approaches. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how psychodynamic psychotherapy is really emphasized in the analytic program, the 2-year program curriculum, or not. Thank you.
Karen, do you want to take that? You have a little more.
I didn't hear the whole question. So Mary, can you ask it again?
Sure. So I was hearing people reference psychoanalysis and then psychodynamic psychotherapy. I'm wondering if you could talk to, for the 2-year program specifically, how much of the curriculum is incorporating psychodynamic psychotherapy, literature, research, approach, etc.
I would say that it's everything you're going to get in the 2-year program would be considered psychoanalytic theory and psychoanalytic technique. But because the 2-year program is a certificate in psychodynamic psychotherapy or psychoanalytic psychotherapy, I think it's called, like unlike the case conference, people will be presenting their, let's say, 1 time a week cases, but it's sort of like, how can you think about those cases in a more dynamic or analytic way? And so while all the teaching, let's say, is psychoanalytic, the hope is that the application of that is not in that like traditional way that people thought, oh, it's only psychoanalysis if you go 3, 4, 5 times a week to see somebody. That in fact, you know, there's some thinking about this is a mindset. This is a way of listening. This is a way of understanding maybe what's happening in the room between you and your client that is analytic, even if you're only seeing, even if you're seeing somebody once a week or once every other week. It doesn't have to be that you're only seeing people in multiple times a week treatment to be thinking analytically. Does that maybe clarify, Mary?
A little bit more. I appreciate that. I know it's kind of a tough question. I sort of grew up in the like Nancy McWilliams kind of more analytic dynamic tradition, and so that's very much like my bread and butter approach. And I'm currently in a 10-month program studying object relations. And, you know, just me personally, I'm really bumping up against edges around that professionally. And so I think what it's really revealing to me is that I'm looking for a program that can hold the complexities and the problems around analytic work and thinking, frankly, and can sort of teach around that in from a more dynamic place.
Right.
And isn't sort of trying to steep people in more traditional analysis, but is teaching people how to think like that, and also teaching people how analysis has evolved and needs to keep evolving.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, part of the sort of social applicability of this program, that emphasis on that is also, I think maybe when people were saying it sort of trends to what sounds like relational, but it's not necessarily like relational psychoanalysis. It's really the trending to be like, we're here to question what has been traditionally sort of taken as gospel and perhaps bound it in some way, and that this program has a very intentional, and I think so does the psychoanalytic training program. Really, we just have a little bit more latitude because we're not training psychoanalysts, so we can be a bit more deconstructive perhaps, or a bit more asking difficult questions, because people are leaving not in that canon of you know, you're going to graduate and you're going to be a psychoanalyst. You know, you're like going to graduate from this program and you are going to be a psychoanalytic psychotherapist, and we get to sort of say, what is psychoanalysis? You know, like and that's happening in the psychoanalytic training program too, but I think that we just have a little bit more freedom on some level to ask those questions and to do it maybe a bit more interrogating, because that's what we're, you know, people are becoming psychotherapists. But I think it's happening in both programs. But yeah, I think that I hope you would find that maybe some of the other students that are in the program might be able to answer that question a little bit better. And I can bring one of them over if you want.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a very helpful answer. Thank you. I appreciate the interrogation, the emphasis on that. I think it's important.
Well, I think that there currently is more interrogation of how we think as psychoanalysts that's going on in the broader psychoanalytic community, even within like our national organization, APSA, which has recently accepted psychodynamic psychotherapists as members as well, which they did not do for years. And there's a lot more attention being paid to the effects of culture on the individual and on the development of an individual mind, and as well as the social unconscious. So I think there are changes that are happening throughout the field, and that we're thinking differently.
Yeah.
On that note, I'm curious if the 2-year program is, how the 2-year program is thinking about those terms, particularly for people who are within, on social media a lot. I mean, my clients are online all of the time. And, those archetypes and managing, that social unconscious. I'm just wondering, like, if the program looks at some of those technological factors on how people are conceptualizing self and working and moving with self versus, less technologically advanced origins of the theory.
I would say we have not probably addressed that. I think it's such a great question, including like the difference between doing telehealth and in person. I mean, now that people are back in the hybrid model and the difference between when you see somebody in the room versus somebody online. So I think that has not been a focus, but Zazie, I really think it's a great question, and I can imagine how that could be incorporated into some of our classes. We teach, you'll see in the curriculum, this groups and identity 1 class at the very beginning, and then a groups and identity class at the very end, where we're trying to take up some of these more social, unconscious, cultural, the way that manifests itself in people's lives and in the therapy room. So I could see that could be at least part of a discussion that was happening in those classes. But it's not been a specific focus, I have to say.
It is something that is that has been a part of the child psychoanalytic training, especially in the year when there's a focus on adolescence. And from people from 12 on, 12 to 20, where that is where so much use of social media is, where people get started with that, and so there are people writing about it. There is literature about this, in the general psychoanalytic literature with child analysts. So it's there to be tapped into. And yeah, I think it would be great for us to be talking more about it in even in thinking about our work with adults.
Well, speaking of telehealth, I want to ask a general question. I know if the 2-year program is only encouraged to have your own analysis, but how is SPSI members or SPSI approved analysts looks at telehealth, doing analysis via telehealth? I know I listen IPA forums, they encourage hybrid. Some say only once a week, couch, 3 times a week, telehealth is okay. Some say absolutely no. What's your opinion? And
Kimberly, do you want to
what's
speak to
the
that?
general opinion? Can we find hybrid analysts to get analyzed?
Oh,
And-
yes, yes.
All right.
And I will say that I'm a fairly recent graduate from training. I started all of my control cases entirely online because it was during the pandemic. And I think, and also all of the analysts who were our training analysts when I was in training had to do the same thing. So there are people who would rather not use
Right.
use telehealth, but I think it's just at least hybrid has become just a part of the world at this point. You know, it's like at this point, I have people I see in person as much as is possible, but if one or the other of us is sick or, you know, something happens with someone's kids or we very easily can switch to using Zoom. People work on the couch with their laptops. They set their laptop up, they're on the couch. It's at home and you may get to meet someone's cat or dog or child. But it's would actually can really add some richness too. I think it was very interesting to see the changes that happened going to telehealth during the pandemic. So it's that's a long answer to the short yes. Yes.
At least, some of the analysts are open to it. That's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have one question. I'm currently doing the relational psychodynamic certificate program through CPI. And I just started this is my first year in it. I've really been enjoying it, but it's sounding like this is much more theory-based, which is what I'm looking for. It's been great because it's so experiential and it really has helped me like focus more on my own experience. But I was wondering if you could speak to how they might dovetail together, that program and this program.
Sarah, is your program the one that Roy Barsmith? Is
Yes.
that Roy's program? Yeah.
Yes.
I understand. Do you need to get your computer back?
No, you just said Roy, and I thought, who are you talking to?
Do you know Sarah? You know.
Go ahead.
My understanding is Roy's program is also designed particularly towards supervision. Is that right?
It's a lot. It's very case-based. Yes.
Yeah.
Very case-based.
So, I mean, this would be a whole other like degree of sophistication that I think you would get in this program, and there's like no contradiction. You would come in, with such a great level of already having a lot of experience in using yourself to do your work. But this would fill in your learning with so much theory, technique, other ways of thinking that aren't necessarily just along that line. I think it would be nothing but complimentary.
Okay. That's exactly what I was asking. I want to make sure it didn't contradict at all.
No, in no way would it contradict. I mean, you might read something that you would be like, oh God, that's a conversation, but then that would be a conversation.
Right.
Yeah. Well, again, I just would like to say thank you so much for coming, and that my email, again, Karen@KarenWeisbard, all one word, .com. Please, if you have any further questions or you want to talk to somebody other than me, I will put you in touch, like I said, with Michael Pauly, head of admissions for the psychoanalytic training program, if anyone is really wanting to consider that, or anybody else. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.